Long gun versus handgun for home defense. I wanted to share my unique perspective on it because I think about things I don't think everybody thinks about, and I wanted to share what I think the difference between these two are for home defense. Now, when I watch a video, usually about this type of subject, it usually only comes down to combat with that gun once that gun's in your hand and all conditions are perfect for combat. Long gun, handgun, already in your hand, ready to go. But I think about a lot more stuff than that. So I'm gonna explain what I think about these two different firearms for home defense. I know this is not an ideal example. The barrel is a little bit long, but you know, I don't have my short barrel shotgun anymore, so I'm sorry. But I do keep this one loaded up, and the way I keep this one ready is I keep the tube filled with double-aught buckshot. This gun, I have a loaded magazine and a loaded chamber. I always have this pointed in a direction in my lockbox that is away from any danger of the muzzle direction. This thing sits kind of in a lockbox that's facing up towards the ceiling, but there's not one in the chamber. So that's how I keep these two weapons ready, and I will employ both of them for home defense under certain circumstances. But I do have one that is a little bit of a preference, and I think that if you only can get one gun, if you can only afford one of these type of guns, I do think there is a little bit of a winner, and I'll explain that in the end. Now, the first thing about handguns versus long guns is they are easier to access from a locked box or just something by your bedstand. I know they do have quick access things for these, or if you don't even put it in a lockbox, I guess you could get away with it. But if you want it locked secure, I know they have like a shot lock for shotguns, and they have other types of wall locks for long guns. But for the most part, if you have both these guns locked up in some fashion, it's going to be quicker to get a handgun out. It's as simple as that. It's going to be a lot quicker. A lot of times there's these little push button or biometric things, and you can just whip it out right by your bedstand quick. The next thing is the use of a light. And I know what a lot of people are going to think and say, okay, you can mount a light on either of these things. And that is true. But to put a light on a long gun, it's a little bit of a deal to do it. You have to get a special system, and there has to be buttons on it and whatnot. And if you're just a person that's not really into guns to that degree, and you're like, I don't want to mess around with all that, you're going to have a hard time using this at nighttime. As where if you're a person that is the same way, you don't want to mess around too much with guns, you just want to buy a handgun and be done. Well, you can buy a handgun, and you could buy a $30 mag light. This is my one I keep by my lockbox, and this will be a lot more useful at night with a simple flashlight and handgun. And along with this, what else do you have? You have a free hand. You don't have a free hand with the long gun. So if you need to open a door, go from room to room where you do have good lighting, you're not going to have that free hand unless you lower the gun and do what you got to do. With the handgun, you can still do what you got to do. You can pull it back, you can keep it close to the body, you can get it up to target anytime real quick. Alright, the next thing, I'm going to go on to pros and cons of each. Now the first pro on the shotgun, right off the bat, it's more accurate and it's more powerful. You would be hard pressed not to find a long gun that's more powerful than any handgun unless you're talking about 22s. So any long gun is going to be more powerful for the most part and more accurate. So I got a paper plate at about 7 yards. I'm going to pull this up, double-aught buck, and give it a shot. Right through the middle, not a problem. So, a little bit more powerful. Now, I'm going to shoot the handgun now. Alright, I got my 45. The way I keep it at home, it's always in this holster, just put away in a lockbox. So, pull this out, 7 yards. two through the same hole. Okay, now let's say it's nighttime. That's where you're going to have a little bit more issue here. If you try to hit something at nighttime with that shotgun, it's going to be a little bit more difficult unless you have a shotgun mounted light or a rifle mounted light. Now if I have this little maglet here, I still do it one-handed. Well, let's see, I can get my light on there. My accuracy isn't quite as well because I'm not hitting that plate. Let me focus more. So, a little bit less accuracy. I mean, they're all around it, right about here. I got one on there. So, one-handed does decrease your accuracy, but that is a full 7 yards. If it is at a closer range, it'll be a lot better. In fact, I'll do that right now. Go to 5 yards. That's a little bit more reasonable. My light on, I can see my target. So, fairly accurate at that 5 yards. Be a little bit difficult to do it with the long gun. So, now the next point I want to make is something that is a little bit different than what the common knowledge is out there. Every time I hear about home defense handguns, it's always the same thing. Get as big a handgun and as powerful a handgun as you can handle. I simply don't agree with that. Why would you go as big as you possibly can just because you're not concealing it for the most part? I say go with what you're comfortable with, and I think small handguns have a really distinct advantage, and I'll tell you why. Let's say somebody is pounding on your door. You don't know who it is, and let me tell you, this has happened to me before. Freaked out because I live in an area where people don't show up at your house. We don't have guests that just show up all the time. So if somebody's pounding on your door, something ain't right. They don't belong there. So, someone pounding at the door. If this was a much, much larger gun, the only way I could get to the door with this gun would be to have this gun in my hand and come to the door with the gun. And when I get to the door, more than likely it's not going to be a threat. It's going to be this teenage girl asking for a cup of sugar that lives next door. Now, what do you look like now? You don't look very good. To me, having something very tiny that you can just throw in your pocket is a huge advantage, because if you get in a situation where knock, 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 you don't know who he is, you think it's probably not a threat. Well, there's no reason why you can't take something that's super small and light and just be like, hey, okay, answer the door. Or if it's somebody you don't know, as you're coming and looking through, put your hand in your pocket with your hand on your gun. Answer the door, hello. If it's somebody that's not a threat, they'll never be the wiser. If it is a threat and they come through your door, you push their way in. Take care of business. And at close range, ain't nothing wrong with small at close range, because you're going to hit it no matter what. So, that's my opinion on these two different forms of self-defense, home defense. Big thing really is the flashlight use and how it comes out of the safe. So, I mean, overall, I think the handgun has a little bit more versatility. Sure, it's not going to have as much knockdown power. Sure, you're not going to be able to go to war with it. But for everyday use and having a free hand, that's most important too, having a free hand. That's important. You're not going to be able to do that with a long gun. You're just not going to be able to do it. So I would say overall, if you can get just one gun, get the handgun. That's my opinion. Now sure, if you can afford two guns, of course there's a place for both. like I said in my previous video, red dawn starts happening. You see someone running across your lawn. If you got a shotgun, or you got a AR-15, or you got a lever action rifle, or I don't care what you got, you're not going to want to grab your handgun. But for home defense, I can't see why not. The handgun seems like the better choice. So that's just my opinion on the differences between the two of these. So just wanted to share that. So thanks for watching.